HomeMatters. One of the most pressing needs for persons with stage 4 cancers and the general population is affordable housing. While some cancer patients can get modest help with one-time only rental assistance, which rarely pays the entire cost of rent for a month and is typically only available once in a 12-month period through most patient assistance programs, more permanent solutions are needed for those experiencing persistent housing insecurity. Housing is a social justice issue, and the lack of affordable options affects many people in our nation, not just those of us who live with stage 4 cancers. We plan to address this grave problem through our HomeMatters program and also the advocacy side of our work through JEDI Action. Think about it this way. If all of our income won't even support the cost of a one-bedroom apartment in most places throughout the United States, there needs to be something done about this. And some people might say, well, there are housing programs related to Section 8. Unless you've tried to access any of those, you are wrong, because they don't exist in most parts of this country. That even where I live, the Section 8 applications have not been accepted since 2012. And there is already a 8 to 10 year wait in order to get those vouchers. Now, we are hoping to do something somewhat similar to Section 8 in the sense of capping rent at approximately 30 to 40% of somebody's income. We should not be making up the difference for what the federal government should be doing. But in the meantime, we need to address these needs at the policy level and through advocacy, as well as coming up with solutions for the people who need help today. We'll start with a peer-to-peer house sharing program, which actually for our website today, which is still basic in terms of its functionality, we do have an option there where people can put up an ad if they're looking for a housemate. We won't have any control over vetting the person who is renting the property themselves or the person who is applying to be a housemate, but we can help bridge some introductions if that would be helpful. Eventually, however, we will have homes that will be a house sharing structure that we will run, and that will be done a little bit differently in terms of the difference between somebody who owns a house or is the primary renter who can throw somebody out at any time. It'll be quite different when we are actually running a program and have a house that is under our name. We are really interested in moving into apartment situations, and I love the idea of doing a tiny house community because not everybody wants to share a home. I know that I personally really value my privacy, and sharing a home where I would just rent a room is something that would not bring me joy. However, there are people who really would like that because they feel alone and lonely, and the idea of having somebody kind of looking out for them and sharing expenses would be appealing. It's the same thing as saying, will we have rental properties only in city locations? No, not everybody wants to live in the city. Not everybody wants to live in the suburbs either. And for people who want to live in a more rural area, we might be able to make that happen if it's close enough to where cancer centers are located. So we do recognize that people have different values and different things that bring them happiness and joy and comfort. And so we want to be able to offer options that give people that kind of choice. When I talked before about having small or tiny house communities, it's something that I am personally drawn to. I love the tiny house movement, but the kind of tiny house community I'm talking about is a little bit different than what we often see to meet the needs of unhoused communities in urban centers and so forth, where you might just see a very small structure that has a bed and very basic things. What I'm really talking about is a 1-bedroom, full bath, full kitchen, living room kind of setup that will be accessible, all one level. And, we basically would need somebody to donate property. We'd have some zoning issues perhaps, and we'd have to look into all those kinds of things. But ideally, we're going to be able to give people a sense of community, but also the kind of privacy that they might choose to have rather than living in a group setting. But they have the option. We want to be able to say what appeals to you, and we can make that work. M44 will offer wraparound services support for anybody that's in our residential program. And that means, they might have needs every now and then. They might have some ongoing needs, and that will be done by our triage team. We also like the idea of being able to eventually expand our residential program to support folks with cancer who have been chronically unhoused and carry some of the extra challenges of that population itself. We do have the skills to be able to do that today, but the level of support that individuals who are or have been unhoused for a long period of time or repeatedly unhoused are at a different level. And we just need additional planning and resources, financial and otherwise, to make that happen. But it is definitely part of our plan. Our subsidized rental properties will be ideally located in close proximity to major cancer centers. So that means we're looking at trying to be as nearby as a half hour, 45 minutes, especially if people might have to go there every day for radiation or whatever that might be. This may also introduce some challenges with people who don't have transportation and so forth. So there are a number of different things for us to consider in terms of how to make this work and meet the needs of the people who live within our communities. When it comes to apartment programming, we want to set it up as clusters. So what that means is that it might be a small apartment complex that maybe has 6 apartments in it, similar to the house sharing model, where some people would share a 4 to 5 bedroom home. The apartment program would also be able to offer a sense of community that people could be looking out for each other. And we would also have probably somebody on staff that would be responsible for that particular cluster and making sure that people's needs are met. As a result of all of this, our model is really more of a supported living environment than simply a landlord-tenant relationship. We would also be interested in looking at supporting veterans with cancer. I mean, the list goes on. We're just getting started. How will we make this work? Well, first, we will rely on donated homes for the most part for direct residential housing for our members. Homes that are not found to be suitable for this use will instead be readied for putting them on the market and selling them, and we'll use those proceeds to further advance the program. I mentioned earlier about how we would like to get some real estate folks on our steering committee, and that's because there are a number of things that we can explain to people who are looking at their options related to tax benefits and so forth. We cannot give tax advice, but we can tell people what might be available to them, different ways that this could work in terms of donating a property for the tax benefits if somebody inherits a home, or if somebody would like to donate the property, there is a thing where they can live in that home until they pass away. Again, we won't be able to give them any legal or tax advice, but we can point them in the right direction with the right information about how this would work. The only reason why this could allow for subsidized rentals is because our goal is not to have mortgage payments. And that means that any of the money that we're able to raise through selling other properties, we would hope to buy outright and be able to turn that into a new acquisition. Rental payments collected through this program will help support the upkeep of properties, insurance, and other costs, such as the triage staff salaries and program expansion.